No, I think their morality is movable. You're going to see, I mean, some
And that's
teams,
for every team, by the way.
I think it's for every business, to be honest.
Good point.
We do have a tax bill, but no guarantee.
Well, kind of. We have the outline. Yeah, we have the outline of a tax bill.
It's as long as this.
Yes.
Enough said.
He wants to put the American worker first, who too long have been sidelined and forgotten. He wants to make sure that American businesses are put first as they decide how to grow and manufacture here.
100 days of broken promises to working people, 100 days of handouts to the wealthiest people in our country.
Welcome back to another edition of Enough Said. My name is Dan Barrero, joined as always by Justin Gard and, of course, Lori Fisher in the control room.
Hi, guys. Definitely some different points of view on how President Trump's first 100 days in office are going. He hits that 100-day mark on Saturday. A lot has happened since January. We have the travel ban, missile strikes, and now North Korea, just to name a few. The list goes on and on. Dan?
He kind of billed himself, I think. The whole bit was he's going to be the get something done guy, right? I mean, that was really it. Hey,
yeah.
I'm going to cut through all the bureaucracy and all the nonsense. I'm going to get stuff done. I'm going to get it done in about a day and a half. Well, let's do the scorecard, okay? Obamacare replacement bill defeated. Immigration ban, now two of them held up by two different judges, so that's sort of in limbo, right? Nothing's happened there. No infrastructure bill, which was another big thing that he talked about. That hasn't started. No wall. I don't even think we got the structure on how we're going to pay for that, allegedly, because I don't think Mexico's going to do it.
Not yet.
And we do have a tax bill, but no guarantee.
Well, kind of. We have the outline. Yeah, we have the outline of a tax bill.
It's as long as this.
Yes.
So for a get something done guy, he's done virtually nothing. Now, again, it's 100 days, and we all have these short attention spans, but really nothing has happened. And the irony of it is, if he was supposed to also be a fascist, he's doing a pretty poor job of it, because most fascists, you know, they tend to sort of consolidate power and overrule other branches of government. And so on that basis, he's a failure. He's a failure as a fascist as well.
A lot of executive orders, though, have been signed.
That's true.
I think more than any president up until this point through the first 100 days. We are frauds, though, on the 100-day thing, I think. I do agree with it, but he's kind of a fraud on it, too, like every president, which has been interesting.
Well, especially from him saying, because he is the guy who said, 4 days, I'll get stuff done.
Yeah, but then he says artificial barrier. What else did he say? Not very meaningful, ridiculous. What did he say? Ridiculous standard. But then he says, but my 100 days have been better than anybody's 100 days ever. So, and they're having events and everything. Yeah. But now, grant me this. On the border wall, on immigration, on tax stuff, on the health care, wouldn't it be better to let it marinate a little bit? And it's better, I think it's better that all this stuff wasn't just forced through. I know he tried to. Yeah. But we talked about the health care thing. It's like, shouldn't we take our time a little bit? They tried to do that in 13 days and it didn't work.
I would agree, except that if I had some feeling that it means
it might go somewhere.
Well, that, and also that it means he's deliberating and being more careful before he throws up stuff against the wall. That was part of the problem with the immigration ban.
Big time.
Hadn't been vetted, hadn't really been, and his aides privately, that's what they admit they're dealing with here at the top of the food chain. It's not unusual for any new administration to run into issues sort of getting off the ground.
Yes.
Just the nature of the job. The difference in this case is the guy at the top basically encourages this, because he'll do these left-hand, right-hand turns. They don't even know what's coming.
Right.
Remember the 3 million illegal votes?
Yes.
And remember then Pence, the vice president, was going to lead an investigation on that to find out. Now there's no investigation. There's no sign of it. And it's sort of been dropped.
Yeah.
Why? Because they just had to say something, because he brought it up out of nowhere.
And
this is what I think gets in the way, too, of also some momentum
for sure
on stuff that might be more significant.
And you look at all of his campaign promises, now people are going back and saying, well, how has his position changed? And that's typical of typically any president, right? I mean, they're going to change. But the radical changes where he's basically gone 180, whether it's NAFTA, whether it's United Nations, whatever. That, I think, is fair, is when you say in the first 100 days, you've reversed positions on so many different things that may have gotten you elected. Which isn't out of bounds, but it just seems like there's a lot more.
30 seconds left.
You know, I would say on the allegation that he's going to be a Russian stooge, he wins that one, because regardless of what we are still trying to figure out about pre-election, very little to nothing has happened to indicate that he's going to be Putin's Bobo. I mean, in fact, it's just the opposite. So that hysteria, I think, has not been proven true to this point. I'll give him credit. I'll give him credit on the attempting to try to get a breakthrough in Syria a little bit, change the momentum.
Have you had time to read the whole tax bill yet? Maybe this weekend.
Took me about a minute and a half.
Get a cup of coffee.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's what you can do this weekend. Enough said. Let's continue on. The NFL draft is underway. The Vikings didn't have a first-round pick because they gave that away last year to get Sam Bradford. And then you have the big national story of Ohio State cornerback Garyon Conley accused of rape, something he really denies. The Raiders, though, did end up taking him for the 24th pick. Justin.
Well, we find out, we've talked a lot about distractions, and that's always one of the things during the build-up to the draft is what guys are red flagged, and what do teams care about and what don't they care about. I think in the case of Jabril Peppers, who as of yesterday or as of Thursday, a lot of people said, oh, he might be out of the first round, and I think we even talked about it. So we don't know that. We might think he should be for a diluted urine sample that may or may not be because he was doing drugs or something like that, which we don't really know.
We don't know.
We find out that, teams care about stuff. Joe Mixon didn't go in the first round. Will he go in the second or third? We'll find out. But on some stuff, they either trust the player, which I think you have to. The Raiders are taking a huge leap here, taking Conley, right? Massively. They've had to.
There's no charges yet in this case, but I think it's just early days.
Very much.
This has just kind of been established.
If he's eventually cleared, then it might be one of the great heists in first-round draft history because he was ranked. Now, but if he's not, then you're in big trouble. But there's some stuff the NFL cares about. There's some stuff that they don't. I think that's why we saw Peppers was right back in the first round where a lot of people thought he should be.
Well, and then again, I think their morality is movable. You're going to see, some
And that's
teams,
for every team, by the way.
I think it's for every business, to be honest
Good
with
point.
you, beyond just football and beyond sports, that you may feel you can't take a guy in round 1, but you might be willing to take him in 3, even though you're going to maybe still get the same heat from people depending on what the allegation is, or in the case of Joe Mixon, it's more than an allegation. The other thing that fascinates me about the draft is this was a year we've been told for months where it's a poor quarterback.
Yes.
It's undistinguished. Somebody's got to go.
Yeah.
It's an important position, but nobody's any good. And what happened?
Second overall
Three
pick.
of them went in the top 12, was it?
Yes.
And three teams moved up. The Bears basically gave away the rest of their lives to move up in the draft to get a guy who's played 4 games.
Yeah.
Basically, out of North Carolina.
He's played 13 games for North Carolina, 2 of them losses, a bunch of them losses. Duke and North Carolina State among the teams which he lost to, not exactly Alabama and Ohio State. You're right about the quarterbacks.
It shows the desperation people have to find one.
Yes.
But they end up, I think, often compounding their problems by reaching and paying for it.
And putting unnecessary pressure, I think, on a position that already has, quarterback in the NFL already has as much pressure as any maybe you could say kicker at some point, because a lot of times it comes down to their foot. But in terms of the franchise, Trubisky, he better be Jim McMahon times whoever.
He'll have to be a lot better than McMahon
to make it all work out. But it was interesting that 8 of the 12 first picks were offensive players, because the other thing we heard was not a lot of greatness offensively in this draft. Defensively, you can pick anybody in the first round and you're going to come out with a good player. So to have 2/3 of the first 12 picks be offensive players was a surprise too.
It's fascinating in that, again, as much as the league has tried to turn this into a science, it's still an art. Because no matter how much they probe, no matter how much research they do, the truth is they don't. When they talk to reporters, they don't know.
They have no idea. But my red flag goes up when I say, well, you've had issues with this person before, so why are you really doing this? Are you doing it for PR, or are you doing it because you're actually concerned that it's not the right fit? Because I'd say.
A battle over who leads the 4th precinct in North Minneapolis. Police Chief Janae Harteau appointed Lieutenant John Delmonico, but Mayor Betsy Hodges overruled that decision. Mayor Hodges says that another kind of leadership is needed to build trust between the police and the community. Chief Harteau says she is disappointed. The 4th precinct, as we know, was the scene of that long protest after the shooting of Jamar Clark back in 2015. Dan?
I'm beginning to think this could be a pretty juicy reality show.
It should be pay-per-view for sure.
Absolutely.
I feel like there should be a poster with the 2 of them, like promoting a boxing event or something like that.
And in this case, it doesn't look like,
$49.99.
let's face it, a lot of reality shows, they're faking the hostility. I don't think apparently there's going to be any faking necessary.
There's no script for this show.
So you've got the added news, I think, breaking earlier today that allegedly the mayor was given,
about an hour and a half.
About an hour and a half, 90 minutes notice on the Delmonico decision.
Correct.
Which is part of so she feels blindsided. You got a chief who's saying this is supposed to be my call, who's obviously bitter. And then you got the added, and so part of this for me, my theory on this is in part, the mayor is in the odd position of basically defending her role as mayor, fighting someone who is going to run to her left, which is almost seemingly politically impossible, but that's a little bit of what she's maybe fighting in this race. And so that's part of the reason she's put up this flag. Now, Delmonico, you know, he was part of this bizarre,
Pointergate,
stupid,
really dumb,
ridiculous. We mocked it.
Oh yeah,
incessantly. We're suggesting that the mayor is flashing gang signs.
Yes.
That whole nonsense with that photo.
Yep.
And you know, you'd like to think somebody could get past it, but maybe not, because it was such an outlandish claim. And the mayor has not said whether that enters into this reason.
Pretty clear, though.
It could be.
Yeah.
I get how some people, some leaders are saying, I'm having a hard time getting past that. Now, may not have anything to do with this situation.
But he's worked a lot in the precinct, right?
He has.
You've entrusted him in a lot of situations.
Yes.
He does, and that's why, because my concern is, well, if you're concerned about him leading it, so to speak,
right,
then shouldn't you be concerned that he's still involved at all? And you've had him on overnights, which everybody says is one of the most dangerous, toughest assignments on the force, right? So that would be my follow-up question. Well, if you don't think he's good enough for this post,
right,
why should he be good enough for any post in there? And that makes me wonder why you are doing this. The 90-minute thing is probably ridiculous. I don't know about the backroom trading that goes on, what typically is the lead-up time when you're talking about these appointments. So I can see where if you're blindsided, you want to pump the brakes a little bit. But my red flag goes up when I say, well, you've had issues with this person before, so why are you really doing this? Are you doing it for PR, or are you doing it because you're actually concerned that it's not the right fit? Because I'd say if he's not the right fit to do this, he's not the right fit to do anything.
Well, also, and I think there's good history between Harto and Delmonico, and I don't know. I mean, maybe it's the blood has gotten so bad. There's so much tension here now between the mayor and the police chief. And if there is this much, something's got to give, right? I mean,
final point.
To me, if you get into this sort of situation where you're not going to allow the chief to make this sort of leadership call, you gotta move on, or you gotta resolve it, right? It's very
can't just hang
there.
No, exactly.
Okay, we're going to talk about a story you guys have been on top of as well. ESPN is laying off 100 on-air personalities, including former athletes who joined the TV side. The sports network plans on focusing on more of a digital future. They have also been hit hard with increased rights fees to broadcast live sporting events. Justin.
That's, I think, the key part, what Lori just said. The economics of live games have gone crazy. We've talked, and you wonder
the cost
of carrying the games
and the rights.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. Yeah, the rights fees, whether it's NFL, NBA, Major League Baseball, college football, and basketball. They just went through another round of those. NBA within the last year, we've seen that.
Are they in the trillions yet, or is it still billions?
Pretty close. Yeah. You know, $400 million is what it used to be last contract for the NBA. Now it's $1.4 billion. You couple that with the fact that younger people, older people, all people are cutting the cord when it comes to cable. The math was never going to add up. I know we've talked a lot on the radio about the politicization.
Well said.
Something like that.
Tough word.
Enough said. Making it political, and that's why people have gone away from ESPN. I don't think either one of us really buy that as a reason why they're in this position. But fascinating for me, you know, every company has gone through layoffs, right?
Yeah.
I mean, every company, whether it's our company on the radio side or TV side, whatever. ESPN was the one that was immune to all of that. They were nothing but growth since they went on the air back in the 70s, and now they're just like everybody else. That, for me, is what's most shocking.
Look, this is part of a pattern. I mean, I'm an old ink stain wretch. I'm an old newspaper guy. Guess what? Readers' habits changed. Sadly, for me, but they weren't as interested. There are a lot of people, you mentioned young people, they don't even know what a broadsheet newspaper is.
No,
they go, well, no, I got it on the
phone.
Computer. I got it on the phone. What do you mean? You mean you can actually get one and look at it that way and turn the pages?
And there used to be an art. It was like a rite of passage. If you could turn the page properly, you were an adult.
Correct.
If you could fold it and read it, you really felt like you were accomplishing something.
Point is, readership habits change. Fewer people reading. I don't want to get into the whole want ad thing. But newspapers did what? They had to streamline, cut back, go away in many cases. And now you're seeing youngsters who also have different viewing patterns, just like the reading patterns we were talking about earlier. Now it's viewing patterns, and they're not as interested. They're watching other kinds of, sometimes they're watching other shows, or they're getting their sports some other way.
Yep.
They're not interested in the big fat cable or DirecTV package that a lot of us have had for many, many years, and that's having a lot to do with it. I don't think I won't say politics has zero to do with people who might be wavering on whether they want to continue it, but it's not as high on the list as some people want to believe. And I don't even think it's also, there's Well, there's too many people screaming
Enough
on their
said.
network.
Not really.
I don't think that's the key to this either, whatever we think of it.
Next topic, the Wild. Wait, not the Wild gave it their all. We gave it our all in the
State of
last
hockey.
game.
So you're not running from them.
We
You're
fought
still-
till the end.
And as we know, they lost the first round of the Stanley Cup playoffs to the Blues 4-1. Guys, you have 2 minutes to reflect on the past season. Justin, you go first.
Wow, 2 minutes.
2 minutes.
I might get emotional.
Ryan's timing you.
Annoying
You know what?
end of the finish for me.
No, we tried hard. We could have quit when we were down 3-1.
That was my favorite part of it. That people from the team said, well, we showed who we were when we were down 3-1 in a home game where we've already lost 2 home games, in an elimination game in the best season you've ever had, about to end on a random Saturday afternoon. They had a great regular season. They had a great run. Guys took the next step. But at the end of it, it was what we've seen so many times. Not being able, for whatever the reason, hot goalie, or they're just not, they don't have it in them, or they're just not that good, or they had some injuries in the case of Granlund.
You're one of us.
Not being able to finish the deal.
I'm not. Why do we have this propensity and this need in this town to excuse failure? I don't understand it. We always, that's a hot goaltender.
Well, you have to have
we tried
success
hard.
first to have the alternative.
And I guess part of it is the other way to do it is to admit we're not good enough.
Yeah.
And that's
scary.
Big a mountain for us to climb. We make more excuses and grab onto more feeble alibis, like we're the first team in history that may have had frustration on the part because of a good goaltender who's doing his job. Our goaltender didn't do his job in the third period of that game, which is part of the reason we had to go into overtime at all. So I'm tired of it, and I didn't want the GM to necessarily burn the team at the stake in his news conference.
But acknowledge it a little bit.
Don't even get specific on players, but acknowledge that this is well short of what we're supposed to be. Don't do the old, 29 out of 30 teams are going to be unhappy, because that's a pathetic response to the, fifth year in which you've gone nowhere.
And that's the hard part, too, is because you want to be upset about it, because fifth year where they haven't done anything.
Right.
And we thought when Parisi and Suter came here, there would be more runs, I think, of this nature.
I think the owner
but it was for sure.
Although he's made some money.
He's made a lot of money.
He's made a lot
and he's
of money.
even said, I would do the Parisi and Suter thing all over. He said that changed our franchise. It was a business decision.
It's true.
He made that at the part.
It helped the business model for sure.
Yeah, people get sick of the losing. I think to answer your question, why we excuse failure, what's the alternative? Like, we fail at everything, more or less. So it's easier to move on. It's easier to move on to the next failure if we can just rationalize it and move on and just keep moving
feel really
forward.
good about the kids.
Like PJ Flex says, just keep rowing.
These aren't teenagers.
No.
The kids trying hard. These are professionals paid millions
It's
and millions
remarkable.
of dollars.
It's remarkable how they changed, because in the regular season they had no problem scoring goals. They had no problem finishing, most goals in history.
Well, in fact, how many goals? I do think we've reached this point of absurdity where we're pretending that flight attendants daily don't have to put up with endless idiocy.
For sure.
Now more than ever, from passengers who feel
Now they're empowered,
emboldened. Like, hey, I can say anything. What are you going to do about it, man? You're going to drag me off the plane?
Time for the lightning round. United Airlines settles for an undisclosed amount with that passenger who was hurt after being dragged off a flight. The airline is also making some changes. They're increasing the incentive to up to $10,000 if you volunteer to be bumped, and they are also doing some additional training for employees. Dan.
Well, bully for them. They're doing what they had to do.
Of course they are.
I wish we actually had more time for this, because I do think we've reached this point of absurdity where we're pretending that flight attendants daily don't have to put up with endless idiocy.
For sure.
Now more than ever, from passengers who feel
Now they're empowered,
emboldened. Like, hey, I can say anything. What are you going to do about it, man? You're going to drag me off the
And
flight?
then the cameras come up, and who knows what else.
I think that's a part of the story that should not be unexplored.
Fair to say the doctor is going to be able to take the Patino terminal a lot more now with his settlement. He's
Well,
not going to have to
it's more
worry
than-
about getting kicked off.
It's more than $150.
Okay,
I would
next
think
up.
so, yeah.
Several local school districts are warning parents about the new Netflix series 13 Reasons Why. It's about a 17-year-old girl who commits suicide. Experts want to make sure parents are talking to their kids about the controversial show. Justin.
I think that's a good part of it, is make sure you're talking about it. I don't know if the show should be banned forever.
I got to see the show.
I would too. I'm really torn on the whole romanticizing television, music, art. How many times have we been down this road, right? Whether it's Eminem, Marilyn Manson, books, movies, forever. But I'm glad that they're at least getting the word out. Like, hey, pay attention to this, because someone whose daughter's very well versed in Netflix, and with my 2-year-old that can already find YouTube on the phone, you do need to make sure you know what they're watching a little bit. So I'm glad that they are giving the warning.
It's a volatile subject, man.
Okay.
It's one that makes everybody queasy about what the right way is to handle it. You don't want to ignore it, but there's a fine line there.
I want to show you guys a picture. Change of policy at Big Lake High School. The trap shooting team's yearbook picture was initially rejected because the students are holding guns and it was against school policy. But there was some backlash, and they've since modified the policy and will allow the picture in the yearbook. Dan?
This was stupid.
Remarkably dumb.
Fortunately, it got fixed pretty quick, I think.
Almost immediately.
Once the pitchforks were out. And I'd like to think the administrators did it for the right reason, which was the original decision was stupid, but my assumption is they caved because of the pressure, because that's what most administrators
I would have liked it if the other teams would have stood up in solidarity and said, well, then we will remove our basketballs, our footballs, our tennis rackets.
That was what's dumb about this.
Moving on, next
really
up. A new survey shows that 60% of teens will actually take a break from social media, some voluntarily, some not so
Punishment.
much. The timing, about a week or longer. Boys are more likely to do it than girls, and reasons include getting in the way of school or just tired of all the drama. Justin?
I think that's the real reason.
I don't believe it. You believe it? I don't believe it.
It's probably closer to 25.
They think that's what they need to say.
They need to say?
Or it's going to be taken away from them even more. You know that.
Well, are you reflecting on your own social media habits, where you try to take mental breaks and you just keep being lured back into it?
I don't think it's going away. It's not 60%.
Well, and I don't think it's a week or longer. I would say it's probably about a day and a half, and then you got to know what's going on with your friends or
what's
in the public or whatever.
Gone?
I don't know. I mean, a couple of days probably. On vacations, I try to unplug as much as I can.
I forgot my phone at home yesterday, and it felt awful.
Awful?
But it was nice and freeing at the same time.
I would say it felt freeing. I would say it felt great.
The most popular driver in NASCAR is calling it quits. Dale Earnhardt Jr. is retiring at the end of this season in November. He's 42. He's had several accidents, and he says he wants to start a family. Dan?
Well, I guess we're happy for him. I mean, you know me, I'm a great lug nut mind.
Oh, you love it.
And he's a huge name, right?
He is.
Auto racing's
legacy.
Still huge.
Yeah, legacy.
So, heck of a run. I mean, how do you argue with it? I mean, I always say getting out of auto racing alive, frankly.
Yes.
I know they've improved the safety, but getting out of it alive, you should feel ahead
Well, think about his career
unbelievable.
after his dad died.
That's it.
I mean, he had just gotten into the game, really, when his father passed away.
The State Fair announced 2 more grandstand acts, Sam Hunt and Usher. Which one would you guys go to if I handed you tickets right now?
You go first. My answer is easy.
I'm going to go Usher.
I would go.
Well, we knew that. Yeah, that was a no-brainer.
I would go Sam Cooke.
Sam Cooke.
He's not alive.
That would be a story.
But that would be, I'm an old-timer, so that would be my genre. If I had to, if you forced me, I guess I'm just not a great country mind at all.
Right. And Usher's Usher.
Although country isn't even country anymore.
No, it's totally different.
I would lean. I'd
Usher's
Usher.
big time. I've got an issue. I think it's the first Gopher football game, which I'll be working at. I might have to take that game off to go watch Usher.
You're a big Usher fan as well?
Yeah, I'm sure PJ Fleck is too.
Yeah.
So he maybe.